Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Hal Leonard's 2025 Back to School Summit. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Chase Banks. I'm the Education Technology Marketing Manager here at Hal Leonard and Muse Group. I'm a past band director and percussionist, and it's truly just such a great honor to get to work with our presenters and clinicians and to be able to present these free webinars every year. So thank you for being here and for tuning in. We've had a few great days already this week. We've talked about everything from beginning band, beginning orchestra, to lesson planning for all of our elementary and K-5 teachers out there. And obviously so happy you could join us tonight for our essential planning for substitutes specific for band and orchestra. All that to be said, you'll get a recording of this webinar in your email. You'll get that link tomorrow afternoon, so be on the lookout for that. And another note, we are always looking for feedback. We love offering these webinars for you. We like to think that they're really helpful. So I'm going to throw our email address here in the chat right now. It's hledu@halleonard.com. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or any feedback you have about the webinar. And we'd love to hear from you. The good, the bad, mostly the good, but please drop us a line. A couple notes before we get started tonight. We do have a chat pod over on the right-hand side of your screen, as well as a Q&A section. So please, throughout the webinar, throw your questions in there. We'll take questions live, and we'll just respond in real time with whatever questions you might have. All that to be said, we also have a giveaway near the end, so make sure you stick around for that. But without further ado, I'll introduce our clinicians for the evening, Dr. Charles Laux and my colleague, Jill Dobel. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, so we're talking about substitute lesson plans for band and orchestra. Where do we want to kick it off?
Well, probably a lot of the people that are in this webinar tonight are here because they're looking for ideas. Obviously, the ideal scenario in our world would be a person who can read a score and has experience conducting would come into your room and just take over a rehearse. But that's probably not why people are here. So I thought maybe we'd start out with a poll on what kind of sub access people normally have. And so I'm going to put that up right now. So feel free to answer what you normally have for a sub if you are absent from your classroom. Another district teacher, or option B, I think, is an outside sub or classroom teacher who can read music. Maybe isn't experienced with a group, but can read music at least. An outside sub or classroom teacher who cannot read music. And then I have had this scenario also where they just cancel band when you're gone.
Yeah. Let's see.
So for all of our attendees, over in that chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen, I believe you should be able to see the poll questions. Let's see. All right. Any answers coming in?
Yeah, it looks like it's a lot of answer C, an outside sub or classroom teacher who cannot read music, which is what I kind of figured we might be dealing with here.
Yeah.
Second place, though, is somebody who can read.
Yeah, it's really hard to find the great sub, and I've had some orchestra parents before who have served as my subs, and they might not read music, but they get it, and they're really good with working with the kids. They're just being able to know my classroom and know my expectations. So just having that connection is always really nice. So if you poll your kids and say, are any of your parents substitute teachers? Sometimes those are that's just a gem if you're able to find someone like that. So I've been very lucky. I try to schedule her all the time because she is the best, and she lays it down. She doesn't take any baloney.
That's a great idea. I don't think I ever used a band parent before in all my days, but yeah, it's really great to have somebody who can read music at least. But it's always a good idea to keep in mind, even if that person, plays piano at church or plays a different instrument and they can read music, they're probably not accustomed to standing in front of a group of 50 middle schoolers and reading a score at the same time. So that can really have an effect on what activities you choose to program for when your sub is in the room. So we'll go through, I think, a lot of ideas tonight based on what level of sub that you get and what level of student you kind of work with, because that obviously changes things as well. So I do want to grab one more piece of information from people on a poll, and that's the next question. This will be the last poll here. And that is, what age group do you work with? Oh, did I already put that
Yeah,
up?
and it's kind of open, so there's been a lot of responses already.
Oh, cool.
We have kind of equal number of beginners and then intermediate, middle, and the intermediate, middle may also be beginners too. Like that's, I know in our district we start beginners and middle, so that might be the same for some people, but not too many high school, and then some others. So I'm guessing that might be, I don't know, could be anything, I guess.
Yeah. All right, great. I didn't realize I was polling both questions at one time. Whew, all done.
Yeah, the second one opened up just a little bit after the first one. So
okay, great.
Yeah, you got a good response there.
So do you want to kick off, Charles, or I like to start usually by asking myself some questions on what activities I want to plan for if I'm going to be gone. And the first thing that I try to ask myself is, number one, like obviously what age group am I dealing with here? And I have taught over all levels from beginner through high school. And you want to choose an activity that's appropriate. But the biggest thing, and I have had both of these two types of groups, is do I trust my students to have their instruments out when I'm not there, or don't I? You look like you're in agreement there.
And I think it depends on the time of the year too, because like sixth graders or beginners, beginning of the year, no. Right, because you know that you're going to come back with a whole bunch of broken instruments.
All the bridges are gone.
Yeah. I chipped over the end pin and the bridge broke. And then you're out. $125, $150 for cello bridge.
Absolutely.
That makes a big difference too for me. And then, like you said, it's about trust. And I have trust is one of the words. I have a poster that has the word orchestra down, and I have all the different words of the I guess life skills that I want my students to be able to have when they leave, or things to think about. And in orchestra, the T stands for trust. And I tell my students, beginning of the year, we have to build that trust, and it takes a long time to build trust, and it takes one incident to break that trust. So throughout the year, if you want to be able to do more, if I'm gone, we got to have that trust, and I have to build trust in you. And maybe it's one class, maybe it's not another class, but yeah.
It really varies too from class to class. I've had some groups where I can leave them and be totally confident, and sometimes it's March and I'm still like, no, worksheets.
Not there yet.
So that's the big first question, is whether or not the students are going to be playing at all while you're gone, and then whether or not your sub is going to be musical or not, I would say, will really sort of diverge those paths for you. So we'll cover both of those scenarios. But another thing I like to ask is how I can support the group's fundamentals, right? Whatever you're working on, and this will vary with your age level, is obviously you don't want to have your sub teaching new content or something that's like brand new on there. So what are some skills that can always use reteaching, or that your students are going to want to show off? All of that kind of stuff. I don't know what your next question you ask yourself is, Charles.
Well, I would say, like you said, review is like, you can never have too much review, honestly, and if the kids at least are doing some review while you're gone, that's a win in my book, and I do have my Essential Elements book up. I'm just going to kind of show some of the things that I've done when I've been gone, with my beginners particularly. But so if I pull up the book, and there's at the beginning of the book, this is like beginning of the year, or the first part of the year with your beginners, a lot of people have, I guess, some complaints or just general criticisms about the letterheads being in the notes. I don't know if you can see my book there. I don't know if I can't really zoom in too much. A little bit I can, but the letterhead and the notes. And so when I'm not there or for a homework assignment, this is a great sub plan, is to have the students take their pencils and fill in the note heads and say them to themselves while they're filling those in, and going through all those exercises that have the letters and the note heads, so that they're reinforcing that concept of note reading, and they're putting their finger on it, or their pencil tip on it, I should say, but they're touching the note, they're saying the note, they're filling it in, and then you can have the students go back and play those with the bow or pizzicato, and they're getting that review, and then all those notes are filled in. So it's a really great review strategy.
Absolutely. For students who are young enough to still be in method books, I think that is such an underutilized tool for group instruction when there's a sub in the room. You can also have students write in counting if there is rhythms that you're working on. Any of those little quizzes that are in there are awesome to do while you're not in the room. And then they're easy to kind of check off when students are in their lessons, or you can have them take a picture of it and send it to their Google Classroom or whatever you're on. But definitely look through your method book to see what you can utilize, whether you have a musical sub or not. I think is really great.
Yeah.
No sense in creating all these worksheets when you have great content right there.
That's right. That's right.
I also like to think about my space, and I've taught in a few different classrooms over the years. And some spaces are really great and have a lot of opportunity to break out. So if I have a sub in the room and I trust my students not only to play their instrument, but to break out into sectionals, and I have good enough student leaders that I feel I can say, hey, 10 of these players are going to go here, 10 of these players are going to go there. And then I can have the sub kind of rotate around. And if I have the space for it, it's a really great way to fill that time. Yeah. Not everybody's.
I do that as well with group leaders. And then I have sectional coaches that I bring in, not super frequently, but enough that they know how the classes work, and it's not their first time, just put it that way. And so that's another thing I will schedule. If I know I'm going to be at a music educators conference or whatever, I will
plenty ahead of time
the pros to come in, and then the sub is kind of just a facilitator. They take attendance, and you have your pros doing all the work, and they can get a lot done. They get a lot done. So I think that's a great strategy if you don't have the student leaders and you have the capabilities to bring in the pros. That's what we do.
Yeah. So. Makes it really fun for students too, because they get a little something extra instead of, it's a sub. It's like, no, you get like the subs.
That's right. That's right.
That's really cool. So yeah, I think if you have a musical sub in the room, obviously if they're confident and can count off a group of your students and feel comfortable doing that, I think it's really good to be able to have them work through a lot of drills that day, lots of scales, lots of rhythm reading, any of that kind of stuff. But they may not, if they're not already a music teacher, they may not feel comfortable rehearsing and saying, okay, we're going to go back to 29 and everybody be a little bit, softer or something like that. So things that maybe a musical sub could do is, apart from the sectional piece, they can sight read easier music. So if I'm working with my 8th grade group and I want them to do a little sight reading with the sub, maybe they get out some grade 1 pieces. And those are usually going to be a lot easier for someone who's brand new to look at. And they get out, they have 4 or 5 different things that they're going to sight read. You can also use resources like sight reading books if you've got some of those around. Have you ever done any sort of easy level sight reading with subs? And how did it?
Yeah, I have. I've done some sight reading, and then I've also I subscribe to Sight Reading Factory, and so the sub isn't able to necessarily like log in and do all that for me, but I'm able to do some screenshots and put it in a PowerPoint that the sub can run or a student can run I have an iPad at the front of my room, and it's just for school, so it has none of my personal information on it in the email or anything like that. But I just use it for presentations, and so I can instruct a student to open that PowerPoint up. It has some screenshots from Sight Reading Factory on it. We do in orchestra, we do 3 parts, so I do treble, alto, and then bass, and they're just 4 measures, and it's a really I do it when there's not a sub as well, so I do it that way when there's not a sub,
Yeah.
so that the students know this is kind of how we do it. But I can put slides and slides and slides together of some sight reading examples and maybe have them work on that as a group with a student leader for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or however long, so depending on how many screenshots you want to put up there, but try to keep it so that it's manageable. But again, they're getting sight reading practice, and it's keeping them occupied and not just on their phones or doing something else during the school day.
Yeah, agree. For our attendees, if you haven't used Sight Reading Factory before, it's really terrific. You can go on and choose your difficulty level. You can choose your key signatures and really customize for your ensemble the parameters in which you'd like to stick, and then you can get just like example after example after example to sight read.
It's a really fantastic tool, and it's my students don't have subscriptions necessarily, but I have one. I think it's $40 for the year, $45.
Yeah, it's super cheap for what you get.
Right, and I use it regularly just for those warm up type things. 4 measures fit on the board. I have a large projector screen. It fits on there. It might be a little bit more difficult for our band friends because there's so many more instruments and it might be harder to do. The strings, it works really well. Just doing like 3-part simple 4-measure sight reading examples.
Yeah. So speaking of, you said you do that while you're there, and then also while you have a sub. I think it is so important to do activities like that while you're in the classroom, so that they have kind of an idea of what's happening and they have little things that they can do. One of the things that I always used to use as kind of a tool for improvisation, and then later on as a game, is just call and response. And I would always start it with my very, very beginners when we had kids, and we would start on one single note. So like a concert B flat for band kids. And I would play at the beginning of rehearsal every day. This is just how we would start. So it was before they were even like reading music. They're just listening and responding. So I would play a 4-count rhythm, ta, 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 and they would play it back to me then. Right. And the rhythms would get more complex after time. And then I would say, okay, Sarah's gonna play the next one. She plays 4, and then we around the room, right? And everybody, and kids have some kids will nail it and they play 4 counts, and some sort of trail off, but it's a really great way to get them all improvising. And then we start adding in multiple scale degrees. So we always, choir teachers might use solfege or something, but we would always use note 1, note 2, note 3, note 4, note 5. And so I would go back and forth between note 1 and 3, and I would say, okay, we're going to use notes 1 and 5 today or something. And they would the game gets more complex as they go. And I always found that to be a super useful game for when subs, if I have a musical sub and they can play it on the piano or they can play it on their instrument if they have. I used to have a stay-at-home mom who was a saxophone player who was terrific to come in and sub. So she would bring her saxophone and play call and response. And they 5th graders would do it the whole time. They loved it.
That's a fantastic thing. But again, no matter what you give a sub, if it's instructional and you're trying to have them do it, they need to have done it before.
Yeah.
Right. And then it needs to be almost part of their routine so that it's not anything. If we have something new to the kids, they're not going to be able to do it. No. The sub's going to be uncomfortable. So if the students are pulling the sub along, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. If it's the opposite way, it's going to be crash and burn.
25 of the 50 were like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Hard agree. So if you're out there listening and you have a favorite game that you love to play with your students that is also useful for subs, drop that in the chat. We would love to know what that is. So I do, as you were saying, it's helpful to have the students pull along the sub. Something to consider is how musically independent your students are, right? And again, that will vary throughout the year, but and with students' age. But if your students, or even at what point they're in with their literature, if they're sight reading, if they're a grade 3 group and they're sight reading grade 3 music, it's going to be a tough row. But you want to think about, what are my students realistically capable of, with their own musical independence and their just like maturity level independence is always a good consideration.
If it's closer to performance time, and they're able to like play for the sub. I had some subs write some letters like, your kids were so great. They just played for me the whole time and they were excited about this. And, a lot of pieces they can get through, especially if it's younger and it doesn't have a lot of different tempo changes and whatnot. They can get through a piece with playing for the sub. And I think that the kids kind of like it. They kind of like to show off a little bit.
Right.
They know the sub doesn't know much or anything. And then they're going to be like, well, look at us go, So I think it's a great way to do it if you're close to performance time, or if it's a new concert cycle. That's when I tend to take days. Is like, okay, a concert cycle, I need a day after it's over. It's like,
Fair.
well, right? You get the mental health day, but maybe you go back and have the kids play what they already played, not something that they worked on, or something go back and play. If it's the spring, have them play what they played in the fall and see if they can keep it together, those kind of things.
Well, and that's something too, is like you said, kids love to show off, and you can utilize that method book to where, maybe the whole group's not even going to play, or they play a couple of tunes, and then you can assign sections to play for the sub on this or that number. So the saxophones are going to play number 40 together today, and explain what's hard about it. You can use those teaching pieces to say, hey, what's the new thing that you learned in this? And the sub can understand that. They can look and say, oh, there looks like there's a new note here from the teacher's manual, and okay, play this for us. And saxophones, can you demonstrate that new note for everybody? And it gives them a little chance to show off what they've learned.
Yeah.
Ooh, somebody, Loy, left here. Games that I've left for sub days include Heads Up, Notes Up, Note Value ID, Around the World, Pitches on the Staff ID.
So these are games that Loy, I'm wondering, like, is it a game that's on a computer, or is it a game that they do on the board? I guess that's what I'm. Heads Up, Notes
Yeah,
Up.
I want to know.
No, I want to know now. That's
more about Heads Up, Notes Up. Is it like Heads Up, Thumbs Up? Is that the game we used to play in elementary school? I'm dating myself now.
Oh boy, yeah, it's been a long time. I don't even remember that one.
I was in elementary school in the 80s. Okay. Yeah. So.
That's it. Okay, so it's on the board. It's on the board.
Yeah. So let's talk through a few non-musical sub ideas, since I know that's the majority of the folks that are here. And you want to kind of think about, again, what fundamentals you can reinforce with somebody who's not reading music. And a lot of folks, I think, have gone the way of, theory worksheets, and like we were talking about before with your method book, and you're writing in notes and rhythms, and that is all well and good, but sometimes you want something a little bit more. One thing I have used is kind of listening logs, where if it's the day after a concert, that's really great, because you can play their concert for them and have them write a reflection on the concert. Now, with this, I will give you the caveat that it's more helpful to, especially if you're a young teacher and you haven't done this before, it's more helpful to provide question prompts, than it is to just give them a sheet, tell them to take a half sheet of paper and say, how did we do? Because they'll be like, I don't know. Okay, I guess. But in the way that I used to do this was, especially with my middle school students, I taught the ballot for we did a whole unit on going through a contest ballot. Like, what does each thing mean? And what does a good score on this imply, and it would last weeks. But then after the concert, I would give them a ballot and say, score us, give us 1 through 5 on each of these things and write, what do you think we did well, or what don't you think we did well? In lieu of that, again, write out some question prompts, especially for if you know you're going to be gone ahead of time and you know there were problem areas. You can write good prompts on that. And you can also have them listen to other, there's tons of band concerts or orchestra concerts out there on YouTube. It doesn't need to be your own group. Sometimes they're a little more, a little less biased when it's not themselves.
Yeah. And I'm going to share a link. I got to make a copy of it real quick. I use a Google form for semester develop.
Yep. If your students are 1-to-1, Google form is clutch.
Well, it's 1-to-1. And, we still allow cell phones in the building. They don't have to be locked up. Our K-8 now is not allowed to have them anywhere, anytime, ever. But our high school students still can use them. It's all, teacher-based decisions on that. And so 99% of the time, they're not allowed to have the devices in my setup. I have like a no phone zone line in my room. But I do, one of the ideas that I do, and this is not necessarily sub-related, but just classroom related, is I bought a 24-port phone charger, and it's in the back of my room, and students can put their phone on there. I told them I'm not responsible for their phones, but it's my I guess, way of giving back. So you can't use your phones in my classroom, but when you leave my classroom, you'll have a fully charged phone. And it was a really inexpensive purchase with all the cables and the 24-port charger, and the kids use it and they love it. So anyways, but they do use the phones for a Google form, and I will leave a QR code with the sub and the recordings, and then the instructions on how to play them back. And it's a really great way. And so I can count that as a grade easily, but I follow our adjudication sheet, and I've basically made it digital. So that way they can address everything that we've already talked about. They know the adjudication sheet. They've got a copy of one, but now it's digitized, and they listen to the recordings, and they fill it out exactly as a judge would. And it's been really good to get the kids just really thinking about their self-evaluation.
I love that. I love the phone charger idea, Charles, too. I was going to make the joke that I'm pretty sure that the English teacher that they go to after your class probably doesn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing.
They love it. They love it.
No, it's great.
No, it's but it's all based on teachers' decisions, and I don't like it, but the smallest thing I could give back is like, okay, I'll spend $35 on this charger and some money on cables, and it's great. And the kids, they don't have a problem with it. They're pretty good with it. So
yeah. Absolutely. Jill, I kind of wanted to jump in for just a second, but I don't want to derail things. Are we going to get to a technology versus no tech moment, or can I interject?
Yes, we are. I got one more thing I wanted to talk about with non-music subs, and then I'll let Charles rip on the tech, because he's the expert there. So one other thing I always liked to do, and this is again a thing I always did in my class, and then would leave for a sub, is transcription. And I was heavy on rhythm transcription. And so I always had worksheets that were just like a blank staff, and they were like 1 to 2 measure bits, depending on the age and experience of my kids. And I would play a rhythm on a single note, and they would transcribe it for me. And we would go through just like a few exercises. If we ever had like a 15-minute class due to assembly, and I was like, it's not worth getting the instruments out, that's what we would do during that time. And something you can do with a non-musical sub is record yourself doing a few of those transcription exercises and have them do it. You can always utilize technology to record yourself teaching something, and then have the sub kind of facilitate that in the classroom. So don't count that out as an option for when there's a non-musical sub. They may not be able to like actually tell a student where to put their fingers, but if you have students that you trust to play, you can always put yourself on the screen so that you're there to nag them, even when you're not.
That's great. All right. I am sharing that Google form. Just put in the copy here. There we go. And I'm going to paste it. Now, so this is my form and it's catered to my groups and everything, but it gives you the idea. And since it says copy, you can actually make a copy and then just like modify it for your own. But there it is. So when you click on it, it'll say, do you want to make a copy of this? Yes, you do. And then it'll be yours in your Google Drive. So if you're a Google person, I love using Google Forms. So that's again, something that my students can do on their devices. All right, let me show you. So the technology part, what I found is some teachers are really not good with technology, obviously, and some subs are not good with technology, and there are issues with privacy. Oh, you need access. Okay, I will work on that, Jill, and the other Jill in the chat there, not Jill on the
Solidarity.
and I will let you know if I can figure out how to make that work for you. I might have to just open it up, but give me a second. Anyways, as I was saying, so there's also some privacy issues that you might have if you're letting students a sub log in with your credentials. You shouldn't do that, especially if it's like school district credentials. Never ever. But even if it's a system like Sight Ring Factory, you just probably don't want to give out your password. So you have to figure out ways that you can use technology locally, or if you have a student that can do it and pull up their account and basically help lead the class, whereas the students are kind of doing most of the work and the substitute teacher is a facilitator rather than a teacher in that case. So one of the things that my students have used before is Essential Elements Interactive. If you look at my screen, you'll see I'm able to pull it up. So in Essential Elements Interactive, if you're an EE user for band or orchestra, this is a great tool. It is the supplement to the method book. If you've never used it before, you're in all of the books. I don't know where mine went. All of the books, there's a code in the front that allows the students access to the materials, and they can gives them a login to Essential Elements Interactive, and then they can pull up our the feature, which is the I guess the star feature of the whole thing, which is the music studio. And in the music studio, they can pick out any song from their book, and you can go through them. So the students, if they pick out a song, for instance, like Seminole Chant, they can play it back with different accompaniments. And the great thing is that there's 5 or 6 or 7 accompaniments for each of these, especially book 1 tracks. And when they play them back, it gives them a second to get ready. I'll just play an example of one for you just for a second. You can hear what it sounds like. The count off. So some of the features they can use and the students can use is the loop feature. So they can put it on loop mode and it'll just continuously play it. It'll give them the 4 clicks each time. So having kids go through it more than once, and then say, okay, I need you to all go through Seminole Chant, and you're going to go through it with each different accompaniment, right? And they all have different sounds. It keeps it interesting. It also will, again, give them that repetition. So we want them playing more than once. And there's also some tools like the accompaniment tempo that they can use to slow it down. They can say, okay, you get to read off the board today, cellos, and you pull up the cello music, and then they can read off the board. You can remove the melody, you can add the melody, and it's a great way for students to be able to go through the method book, and you're going to do numbers 18 through 25, all right? And that's what I want you to practice today with each of the accompaniments. So it's going to keep the kids busy for the whole period, and a student can run this and then play and run it and play and run it and play.
Charles, if you don't mind, I think this would be a great chance to hop in for just a second.
Sure.
At least from the band side of things, I just feel like it's so important, obviously, for our beginners to be playing as much as possible, right? We want, as teachers, to shut up, keep our mouth shut, just play, play, play. Repetition is key, right? One thing I always had a trouble with is whenever I had to go to an MEA conference or be out of the band room, I want those beginners playing. So what I did, I didn't have, I guess, that student per se to run EEI or Essential Elements Interactive for me. So I actually kind of did an old school method, and I actually downloaded all of the backing tracks and then I literally would make a CD. I know I'm dating myself a little bit,
Yes.
but I'd make a CD with a very descript instruction list for the sub of like, okay, we're going through tracks 1 through 10. We need to repeat each of these 3 to 4 times. And then would even include a few things that, okay, I know my trumpets always would struggle with etude number 17, and so they need to focus on that, and just leaving those little notes. So that way, even if the sub is not musically inclined, at least it's like their little cheat sheet, right? And they can at least hit play on the CD player and kind of do, like you were saying, be more of a facilitator.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now I am editing. There's 10 people that would like access. I'm just going to edit that form that I put out there to be for anybody with the link. So,
and we'll include that link in the follow-up email as well. So if you're watching the recording,
yep, I will do that. But let's try it. So I'm just going to respond to well, I'll go back to the chat. I'll try this again. Take 2 here and see if this one will work. I should have opened it up for everybody. But again, you're going to need to modify this for your situation, but it just gives you an idea at least.
While you're kind of working on that, something that I have utilized also with, not with EEI specifically, but with tech in subs rooms is if I know I'm going to be gone, I'll make sure that I plan for that to be a playing test time. If you do playing tests at all, I have done this at both schools where students are one-to-one and where they have not been. And so again, utilizing that space, I will send pairs of students while the sub is working on whatever they're working on with the group. If I've got 5 practice rooms available, I'll send students, I'll have them rotate in and out and record their playing test for me. So if they're one-to-one, they can go in and record themselves on their Chromebook or whatever they're working with. When students were not one-to-one, I would borrow from the media center. I would get iPads and I would have students record each other doing their playing tests, just a pair at a time, and then submit those to me during that time as well. So that can be a way to utilize that time where, then they're not messing rehearsal with you. If they're not one-to-one and they can't take their device home, things like that. So just kind of thinking of creative ways to utilize that time where they're there, but they may not be getting like a 10 education day. At least they can still get a 5,
Right. Yeah. And I did a similar thing back. This was a long time ago, back when iPods first got cameras. It was like the iPod with the camera. I was like, whoa. And so I had 4 of them, one for each of the sections. And then I would let 2 kids at a time go out. And I had 4 different locations that they could go in small places and just record each other, and they could bring it back, pass it to the next group. So they were doing an assessment while I was just running rehearsal, and I was only missing, 6, 8 kids at a time. And with big classes, I was able to actually have all kids recorded in one class period.
Wow. I love that idea, Charles. And it just, for anyone in the audience that uses EE or doesn't, or haven't used EEI quite yet, Essential Elements Interactive has all sorts of built-in recording tools. So obviously you can have your students do a performance assessment of the actual etudes in the book, but you can also assign them anything else for them to record. And EEI operates on iOS, Android, Chromebook, laptop. It's web-based. There's no download in that sense. So it's very mobile friendly if your students have the tech.
Yeah. And so the record button's here. The great thing about recording on this too is once they record, and I'm just going to do a sample here. There's a sample recording number 1. All right. I recorded the whole thing. The great thing that if you haven't used this before is it says take 1. And if they go and record it again, I'll show you exactly how this works. Let it record just a couple seconds. Have a take 2. Take 2. All right. So now the student can go and listen to take 1. That's a sample. And then they can go and listen to take 2. And they can, compare and listen. It's like, which one did I do better? And then they can, once they listen to that one, they can save whichever one they like better. And then it'll save to their saved recordings. Right. They can submit it to teacher 2. Teachers can set up assignments in the EEI. So you can set up a recording assignment for them. But under saved recordings, now I have that the piece I just played with my 2-second excerpt, I can download that or I can submit it to teacher. So it's a really great way to get kids to build a digital portfolio of their recordings and over time, but also, if you are one-to-one or the student has a device they're able to record this on, they can do it while you're gone.
Really great for self-assessment too, since
Mhm.
they sometimes have a hard time listening to themselves while they're playing, but they can listen to themselves after.
That's right.
I'm gonna publish in the Q&A. Loy left some more detailed instructions for how to play Heads Up, Notes Up. So I'm gonna publish that. Hopefully it'll go to the chat, I think. I don't know where it went.
That's under new. No.
It looks like if you go to Q&A, there's a published
Yes.
tab.
Oh, yep. If you go to Q&A and then published. So if anyone else is curious on how to play Heads Up, Notes Up.
That sounds fun.
Thanks, Lloyd.
That's really fun. I like it.
Cool.
Yeah. This is why I do webinars. I learn something every time I do one.
I know Jill and Charles have maybe a few more things to touch on, but if there are any questions from any of our teachers in the audience, whether that be specific to substitute lesson plans or essential elements interactive, throw them in the chat. We'd be happy to answer anything you might have.
Yeah, so the last big thing to kind of talk about is the piece about training your students. As we've talked about, making sure that you do the activity with your kids a few times before a sub might be coming in. It's important to train your kids. And I actually just wrote a lengthy newsletter on this, but working with student conductors, and you'll always have natural student leaders, right, who want to step up and do the thing. But this is actually a skill that is really helpful for all your students to learn and helps make more independent musicians overall, where from day one, especially if you're teaching brand new beginners where they're not scared yet to get up in front of their peers, you want to start working with them on basic conducting patterns. And this doesn't have to be a thing where you spend a whole rehearsal on it. It's literally like 2 or 3 minutes once a week or twice a week in your rehearsal where they're learning to conduct patterns with you. And that helps them communicate with you, obviously, but it also is going to make them more confident leading their peers as they kind of get older and more into, running their own sectionals and things like that. If you've ever been working with kids at solo and ensemble time, and there's a group that they don't know how to start themselves.
Yeah.
That's how you know you need to work on conducting with your kids.
Right. That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of kids just think that this, so giving him at least a little bit of clarity and a little bit of guidance is a huge thing. Particularly
practicing that prep breath together for winds and even for strings, so that everybody goes and we start. When they learn that last beat of the pattern and how to kind of go, here we go, is so important. As the kids get older, but particularly if you're going to have a sub in the room that isn't musical, they don't know how to do that, or even who is musical but isn't used to leading groups. Really great if you have kids who can go 1, 2, 3, and then start the kids.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, a skill that you should start training on day one, whether or not you're going to be missing any school.
And I'll also say there are a lot of college professors out there that would probably be willing to come in, especially if it's your top group, because they're trying to recruit for their programs. But that would be willing to come in, and even if you tell them, with the disclaimer, I'm not going to be there, but there'll be a sub, and maybe they've been there before, they have a rapport with your kids. But just the college professors sometimes will come in and do a clinic. Just for a period. It might not be all of your kids, all of your classes, but at least maybe you're getting one really good clinic with someone who's just awesome and will motivate your kids and inspire them. So to double check on that too, because a lot of college professors will come out for no charge because they're trying to recruit.
Absolutely. I was just actually in a clinic with a local high school, and the community college professor that was there, and he was so good. I was like ready to sign up for his community band. I was like, this is fun. So I can only imagine some of those kids who are going to be going to the local community college next year are ready to sign up. So it's a great recruiting tool for them, and it gets your group some extra rehearsal with somebody who's a little more exciting than the same old that they get with you every day. Not that I'm
funny
sure.
Isn't it funny how we tell our students something, we tell them over and over and over and over, and they don't do it or don't listen, and then you have a guest come in and they tell them the exact same thing, and all of a sudden it's magical, and they actually do it. It's like, this is why I have to pay people to bring them in. Yeah.
Or sometimes it's not as good of an experience, and they're like, "Thank God you're back," and you're like,
"Yes." For the
either way, it's a win.
We have both of those. Yes.
You know, both of y'all, you bring up some great points that really drive home this idea of community. And it's so amazing. I talk with teachers year in, year out, obviously working with Hal Leonard, going out to trade shows and things. And it is pretty crazy to me how many folks do not talk with the other programs in their area. And it's not purposefully by any means, I assume. But yeah, it's like, make sure that's one of the first things. It's like, reach out to, if you have a feeder program or if you're teaching middle school, reach out to the high school, start building those connections, start building that network and that community. Because it literally takes a village. So,
and I've actually covered classes for my middle school teachers before, when it's like, I'm going to be out and they know I have some availability, my planning period or whatever, and it's extra work for me. But for me, it's also recruiting, because I'm trying to get those middle school kids to come in. But my middle school teacher runs a fiddle club in the mornings before school, and I'm able to do that because I have first period planning, and it works out great because I'm able to get there, meet the kids. And so just don't be afraid to ask your feeder teachers too, to see, maybe do you a favor, and you can return the favor sometime if you have that availability. And if it works out schedule wise, it doesn't always work out, but in this case it did, just for the one class, but it was great. And the kids remember me, that's what you want.
When I've had feeder teachers come in, they're so excited to see the teacher they had last year or 2 years ago.
Oh yeah. And it's super, fun. Yeah, it's super fun.
Mm-hmm.
So
good deal.
Right. I don't think we had too many other questions in the Q&A.
Okay, sure. Well, we're getting near the hour here anyway. So all that to be said, now is definitely the time. If you have any questions for either Charles or Jill, please throw those in the chat. I've got a few other things to share with the group, though. Right now, let's see. You should be able to see these handouts being shared. If you're interested, and if you haven't heard by chance, Essential Elements, the Method Book series, just had a whole new revamp for books 1, 2, and 3 for band and strings. So those brochures that I just attached here highlight all of the changes or updates from the older series to the newer. Good news, you can use them together. No worries there.
That's number one thing. Number one thing is they are compatible, and so rest easy. But there's some great features of the new books, and the biggest thing is the digital content. Lots of digital content. I know there's videos for every instrument. I know I recorded all the violin and viola videos. There's about 75 videos for students to use, and there's for the cello bass folks, same. Lots of great things. And then in the book itself, there's a new icon. The icon is a little video icon next to a concept or an idea, or some of these things in the yellow boxes that are important for kids to know. And that means that there's a video that is correlated with that in EEI.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Over 250 new videos for the band side and 150 new videos for the string orchestra side. So yeah, lots of great digital resources there. Let's see. We do have one question in the chat. What would you do if you were missing during the second week of school and you're teaching beginners?
I would say worksheets are good. Note naming worksheets, whatever. If it's for beginners, if it's something that's a beginning of the year, like I'm doing orchestra handbook right now, and students are returning that sheet. So just reading materials or the listening exercises, like Jill had mentioned earlier, where you can play recordings and either have a paper form or an online form that they can complete. Those are always great exercises to do, but something simple. Yes.
Yep. And if you have someone who comes in who's able to read a little bit of music, you can always do little class quizzes and on note names and like clap alongs. Something that's really fun is it not necessarily for beginners, but you can use it for beginners with simple stuff is like, rhythm of the day kind of stuff where a student comes up and writes out a rhythm on the board and then everybody has to clap it or a couple of you clap it or the sub claps it and they have to tell if it's right or wrong. And you can do little games like that where the students are sort of engaged with the learning still if they have a sub who's at all musical. But yeah, definitely not instruments that early.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Loy shared in the chat naming the different parts of the instruments kind of worksheet. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And Jill in the chat, not Jill our presenter, is asking about playing along tracks for the bonus content in EEI, asking if that's working. Jill, I believe so. It should be, but if you're having issues with the particular,
there aren't play along tracks for the bonus songs. It's just a metronome at this point.
You're right. You're right. It is just the metronome track.
I'm not sure if that's coming. That's more of a Chase question or maybe above Chase question. But that would be a really great feature, and we appreciate you asking about that. So
yeah.
But right now, there's that's the other thing in EEI. There are a bunch of bonus songs. There's about 50 bonus songs or so, and there's movie music, there's Broadway music, there's pop music, all copyrighted tunes. And Hal Leonard, I will say, in EE is the only book that would include those copyrighted tunes, and it's a big thing, and a lot of has gone into securing those copyrights for us to be able to put those songs online. They are not printed in the book, but they are online. So.
Yeah. And one other thing too with the bonus songs that I can share about is because Hal Leonard has those relationships and we can get that copyrighted content, we absolutely have intentions to be adding new stuff throughout the school year. I'll go ahead and give a little teaser sneak peek. In a few months, there's going to be a new movie, a part 2. It's about a witch who's green. And anywho, there are going to be some new songs as a part of that movie. And I have a feeling you're going to see some new bonus content in EEI soon enough.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, one last thing before we hop off here. And I've said this in the last webinar, and I mean every second of it. Speaking from the heart, all of us here, Hal Leonard, Jill, and Dr. Charles Laux, we all believe that music is essential. And in honor of that, we're having a Music is EEessential giveaway. We're doing this back to school season. So right now, you should see a pop-up on your screen. You should have a button there and get to a form where you can enter to win a free class set of either the band or string books for your program. And that's going to include 50 student books and a new conductor or teacher manual. So if you haven't already entered, absolutely go do that, fill out the form. But Charles, Jill, thank you both so much for your time and for your expertise and for being here. Thanks for everyone tuning in. And look out in your email for a webinar recording link tomorrow. Thanks again for joining us for Hal Leonard's Back to School Summit, everybody. Happy back to school.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.